Hi. Okay, interesting topic. Um, I'm gay, so I could um, possibly give you my experience in relation to the subject of what you're talking about. Um, if anything exposes the mental health myth, okay, it's the what they did, their ideas about homosexuality, that, as you know, they're made into pathology, okay? And then all of a sudden, it's not a disease anymore. It's like, what they do is, basically, they decide, a bunch of men decide what is mental illness. It's like they're doing with the kids now, with so-called ADHD, ADD, and on and on and on. They've created things like not being able to do maths is like some kind of mental illness now, disorder. Talking back to authority, all this shit. And homosexuality is really an invention, okay? It might seem a strange thing to say that, but it's an invention created back in the 1950s in order to create a sense of segregation between the straight and the homosexuals, when in reality, right, it's much more complex than that. We're all basically, put it this way, experimentative. We're all sensual creatures, right? And given the right situation, we can be turned on by either sex. And like, when you think that when we go through a stage in our fetal development where we're all females, so you can see it that if you're gonna pick a sex, it's gonna be from the female that we all derive, the good old goddess or whatever. So looking at it that way, these men that make out that they are really straight, you know what I mean, real men, it's a load of bollocks, because they started off as women, I mean, as females or whatever, but these are the kind of men that will usually call somebody a pussy or look down on femininity, because they're trying to raise up their manhood by putting it down. It's like somebody who is on black people, they do this, they do that, or whatever, that I've come across many times. And it's because they are basically inferior about what they think is white. You know what I mean? So it's a psychological thing. The more they shout, the more you know that they're not very secure, with what they are, because they don't know. They're kind of like just lashing out, And this is like inextricably linked with, if that's the word, with the mental illness myth. Where you cannot understand the mental illness myth without I'm just making the camera a bit more interesting, without you mentioning politics, okay? They're like that, because it's political control, all this. Who do you reckon has been the most abused, by the mental health movement? Poor people, of course, which includes, obviously, black people, women, right? homosexuals, gays, whatever term you want to use, people who are different, people who, not different, but people who are targeted as being different and not part of what the political elite wants to promote, for the. And also there's a divide and rule as well, so if people can be made to feel that there's a section of the community or sections of the community to look down on, and all this business, well, you can bet that the overall propaganda machine will use that, so that the energy that is needed to change the system, to change the whole of the machinery that is causing so much shit for everybody, not just humans, but animals, everything, so that just carries on and is maintained through the generations, So I'm just thinking if this kind of like approaches your question and everything. When they start going on about genes, I would recommend you look into eugenics and all about that, because that really gives it gives you where they're coming from when they're going on about genes, put it that way. Later.